For the record, do you think that we didn't walk on the moon?
I don't think we did. I think it was fake.
Okay, so hold up. Did Kim Kardashian just say that she doesn't believe we went to the moon? I mean, honestly, I can't even say I blame her, because the more you actually look into it, the more it feels like the math just ain't mathing, you know? Like something's a bit off. Like the photos, the lighting, the timing, all the things that Kim K said. I mean, we're talking 1969, right? There weren't any high tech cameras, no internet, barely any color TV, but you mean to tell me that you filmed a whole movie on the moon and had a live feed back to Earth? I don't know, man. It's not making sense to me. Hey y'all, it's Simi, and today we are bringing out the tinfoil hats because we are drawing conclusions about the moon landing. Anyways, let's grab our art supplies and a favorite drink and let's get cozy while we question what really happened up there. Before we go any further, I want to be really clear. I'm not here to prove the moon landing was faked. I'm not here to convince you that it definitely happened either. I don't have the scientific background to independently verify the physics or engineering, but what I can do is look at patterns. As a matter of fact, I design patterns for a living. But anyways, we can look at the patterns and the context, people's behavior, and the storytelling and take it from there, right? That's the whole point of this video. We're just going to observe the patterns and the behavior, and you draw your own conclusions. Like I'll draw mine, okay? So let's start with the obvious. Those photos. You've seen them. The perfectly lit astronauts, crisp shadows, and somehow the flags waving even though there's supposedly no air on the moon. Uh-huh. NASA says the flag had a little rod inside to keep it upright, but it still looks way too breezy for outer space in my opinion. Then there's the lighting. Photographers have pointed out that the shadows fall in different directions, like they're under studio lights instead of sunlight. And if you've ever seen a behind the scenes footage of old movies, then you know that that's exactly what it looks like when you've got multiple lights hitting a fake backdrop. And speaking of movie sets, that's where things get really interesting. Some people think the US government hired Stanley Kubrick, yeah, the same guy who made 2001 A Space Odyssey, to help fake the moon landing on a soundstage. And guess what? The movie came out just a year before Apollo 11. Coincidence? Maybe. But the timing is a bit suspicious, if you ask me. But why fake it? Right? Alright, so let's say, just hypothetically, the moon landing wasn't real. Why go through all that trouble? Well, it was the late 1960s, and the United States was desperate to win the space race against the Soviet Union. Russia had already sent the first satellite, the first dog, and the first human into space. America? Playing catch up? Nah, I don't think so.
Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
So imagine the pressure. Billions of dollars, national pride, and global reputation all on the line. If they couldn't actually make it to the moon, I guess the next best thing would be pretending they did. Think about it. One perfectly filmed moon landing broadcast worldwide would instantly prove American dominance without ever leaving Earth. And it worked. The whole world stopped to watch. People cried, waved flags, and believed humanity had just taken one giant leap. But what if that leap was really just a clever jump cut? I mean, the 1960s were full of secrets, covert missions, government experiments, cover ups. So, faking a moon landing, honestly, it wouldn't even crack the top 10 of all my conspiracy. Let me not go there. And here's another thing that always made me pause: the tech. Okay? They say we had a live video feed from the moon, plus a two-way phone call with the president, all in 1969. That's more than 200,000 miles away, through layers of radiation, with cameras powered by batteries and computers that had less memory than a modern day calculator. The signal supposedly bounced from lunar modular to a satellite dish in Australia, then across undersea cables to Houston, and it still came through clear enough for every TV in America to watch in real time. Meanwhile, a TV station on Earth back then could barely keep a stable picture. NASA's engineers explained that it worked using slow scan television and radio frequencies. And that's true. The footage was real analog magic for its day. But when you actually see the film quality, the perfect framing, the lack of noticeable delay between Houston and the astronauts, it feels almost too clean for what 1960s tech could handle. Now, maybe the answer isn't magic at all. Maybe it's just technology we weren't told about yet. History shows that governments sit on advanced technology for years before it reaches the public. The internet started as a military project, and GPS was top secret for decades. Even stealth aircraft were flying long before anyone even knew it existed. So, it's not impossible that NASA had access to communication systems far beyond what people in 1969 could even imagine. If that's the case, the moon broadcast might have just been our first glimpse of future tech that maybe we just didn't know about yet. Like I said, that call would have had to travel through layers of radiation. So, not to mention human bodies passing through all that radiation unharmed. To reach the moon, astronauts would have had to pass through what's called a radioactive barrier surrounding the Earth, often referred to as the Van Allen radiation belts. These belts are filled with charged particles trapped by Earth's magnetic field, and prolonged exposure can be extremely dangerous to humans. NASA says the Apollo missions passed through them quickly enough to avoid serious harm. But that explanation raises more questions. If this radiation is strong enough to damage satellites and electronics, how did humans pass through in the 1960s? With thin shields, limited data, and technology we still struggle to protect today. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it does make you wonder whether we fully understood the risk back then. Another thing that makes people wonder if the moon landing was faked is that we haven't been back after so many decades. The moon landing is supposed to be humanity's greatest achievement, and yet we stopped going after a few missions. NASA has even said that some of the original data, designs, and technical records from the Apollo program were lost or destroyed over time. And that's hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. If this was the single greatest technological feat in human history, something that changed everything, how do you just lose the instructions? How do we have better phones, better computers, better everything, but no clear way to repeat one of the major things that define the modern era? Some say it's because funding stopped. Others say that it's too risky and it's not worth the risk. But for skeptics like me, that explanation feels a bit too thin. Because when something really matters, we don't just forget how to do it, okay? But anyways, I have some bad news for us tinfoil hatters. We won't be able to use this as a talking point for much longer because the US is planning a manned mission around the moon this year, no later than February 2026, and that is a pretty exciting news. They won't be landing on the moon, but it would say a lot that finally, after so many years and vastly more advanced technology, we're finally going back. So exciting. But even that mission is already sounding kind of fishy if you ask me. Because listen to this.
This is the first time we're going to send humans to the moon, and we're going to have humans in low Earth orbit. That is awesome. Like, we should, as humanity, we should take a brief moment to go, that's awesome. This is the first time we're going to send humans to the moon, and we're going to have humans in low Earth orbit. That is awesome. Like, we should, as humanity, we should take a brief moment to go, that's awesome.
That's awesome and odd. I thought we left lower Earth orbit when we went to the moon. I must be mistaken. I thought we already did that in 1969, but okay. And speaking of astronauts, if you watched the interviews that the first crew that landed on the moon gave once they returned to Earth, something definitely feels a bit off. Check this out.
At this time, I'd like to introduce the Apollo 11 crew, astronauts Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin. Neil?
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July. That was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade. We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most, in particular the things that occurred on and about the moon. We will use a number of films and slides which most of you have already seen.
Am I seeing this right? Like, they didn't seem excited, they didn't seem proud, they weren't in awe, they just look kind of distant and out of it. Like, they look uncomfortable. You know, they just went to the moon, so you're expecting for them to be super proud and they're supposed to be heroes that changed history. But they look like they just been through something super heavy. And so I feel like there's definitely something more to learn about what happened with this whole event. You know, just watching that video doesn't prove anything per se. Their behaviors don't prove anything because a lot of things can explain this. Maybe there's trauma, pressure, fame, all that stuff. But this is just another check mark in the long sequence of things that just feel a little bit off about this event. And so it's just like, we're just keeping track of the weirdness around it. Okay, and here's another funny, well, maybe not funny for everyone, but I thought that it was pretty funny and interesting. One of the most famous moments tied to this whole debate happened decades later, and it wasn't on the moon, it was in a hotel lobby. In 2002, Buzz Aldrin, the second man to step foot on the moon, was confronted by a man who demanded that he swear on the Bible that he walked on the moon. And Aldrin refused. The man kept pushing, calling him a liar, accusing him of deceiving the world, and eventually, Buzz punched him, okay? That moment is everywhere online, and for skeptics, the question isn't about the punch, it's about the refusal. Like, why is it so hard for you to swear on the Bible about going to the moon? Why are you reacting with anger instead of certainty? Like, shouldn't that be a moment that you're super proud of? There are also clips that circulate online where people believe Buzz Aldrin suggests the moon landing wasn't real at all. often taken from interviews, lectures, or Q&A sessions. It's important to note that NASA and Aldrin himself says these clips are misunderstood or taken out of context, but I just thought that was worth noting in our research.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. It's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen. So in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going.
Okay, so this is where I definitely feel like we need to put on our tinfoil hats a little bit here. Because we're going to talk about, is this rocket science or is it ritual? Okay? Because the people behind NASA weren't just scientists. Some of them were deeply into things that had nothing to do with physics. One of NASA's early rocket pioneers, Jack Parsons, wasn't just building engines. He was also performing occult rituals inspired by Aleister Crowley. For the conspiracy girlies and the cult girlies, they already know who that Aleister Crowley is. But he literally called himself the Beast 666. Parsons saw rocket science as a kind of spiritual gateway, like blasting off wasn't just about leaving Earth, it was about touching something beyond it. And here's the wild part. This wasn't some secret side hobby. He founded the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, which later became part of NASA. That same JPL that helped launch the US space program. So, while the world saw shiny rockets and astronauts, behind the scenes, you had people mixing science with magic. Literally spelling it with a K. Okay? I'm not saying they summoned they summoned moon demons or something, but it definitely adds a new layer to the idea that the space race wasn't just political. It might have been spiritual too. And once you start looking through that lens, the visuals from the moon landing sort of feel a little ritualistic. The triangle-shaped patches, the eagle, the checker-like surface, all classic symbols that people have linked to Freemasonry or ancient myth. Now, are they secret codes? Probably not. I have no evidence of that. But it's wild how the same shapes that show up in occult art also appear in NASA's iconography. Just saying. Some researchers say the staging of the event, the lighting, the scripted dialogue, even the phrase, "the eagle has landed," mirrors ritual storytelling. Whether that was intentional or just good showmanship, it worked. The world watched in awe, as if it were witnessing a kind of modern-day myth unfold on live TV. For me, that's what's so fascinating about the moon landing. It's not just rockets and flags, it's storytelling, symbolism, and power. Whether you think it's real, staged, or something in between, it says a lot about how belief, science, and spectacle all collide. And honestly, there's so much more here that we could go on and on. This video is already super long. So, yeah. Whether you think the moon landing was a masterpiece of human achievement or the best directed movie of the 20th century, one thing's for sure, we'll probably never stop debating about it. But that's kind of the fun part, right? Questioning what we've been told and seeing what happens when we look a bit closer. Next time on Drawing Conclusions, we're going deeper, back down to Earth, literally. We'll be exploring the flat Earth theory, where it came from, why it made such a big comeback online, and what experts in science and history have to say about it. So make sure you're subscribed and get ready to tilt your head and your world a little bit, okay? Until then, stay curious, stay cozy, and keep trying your own conclusions. Peace.